Well, I didn't grow up playing a lot of video games, probably because there was no such thing as video games back then. But I've actually really recently got into playing huge, large open world games and really get a kick out of it. It's something I do when I don't have anything else productive to do. But one of the games that I missed growing up was the whole Mario Brothers, uh, you know, parts of Mario Brothers, classic Mario Brothers, Mario Kart arcade games. And apparently, with Mario Brothers, there's a couple scenarios that you can use when you're driving or whatever, or moving along to take advantage of, and some that get you in trouble. On the negative end, first of all, apparently there's such a thing as banana peels. Banana peels cause your cart to slip and slide and throw you off course. And then there are stars, or someone said there's something they called mushrooms. I don't know, which cause your cart to speed up. Again, you can tell I have no idea what I'm talking about, but some of the guys that I coach are more into Mario Brothers. So they tell me that this is the case. And today I want to introduce a two-part series where I do explore, like Mario Brothers, things that can slow you down or trip you up in your recovery journey. And then next time, I want to talk about things that can speed you up in your recovery, or at least keep you on course. So banana peels and stars, so to speak. So welcome aboard.
Guys ready?
When it comes to porn, are you stuck, spinning out, or slipping backwards in your life? If so, then welcome to the Finding Traction podcast, a show dedicated to those who are looking to gain recovery momentum away from porn and toward the life and relationships they have always hoped for. Now, here's your host, Vern Tomke.
Well, one of the things that I love to do again is just to connect with people. I often meet a lot of new guys that are considering or just in the process of examining whether or not porn's working for them. Well, actually, frankly, by the time they reach out to me, they do know that porn is not working for them. And again, I love to connect with guys. And if you would like to do that, there's lots of ways that I think I can help you. Reach out to me at bandofbrothers.care. There's the Finding Traction course material. There is different groups. I do individual coaching, and I also collect guys, 5, 6, 7 guys at a time, and we kind of journey through the material together and work towards recovery. So again, all of that you can find on the website, bandofbrothers.care. And it's just something that, again, I connect with guys, do Zoom calls, and there's no real, you don't have to join, but it's just nice to hear guys and their story, where they're at. And one of the questions that when guys approach me that comes up is, how long, Vern, do you think it's going to be before I can get free and clear from porn and its effects on my life? Weeks, months, years, right? And I think you can see some pretty helpful, quick results within 30 days, for example. That can make a real difference, especially if you have a real regular, some guys 2, 3, or even daily acting out issue. Within 30 days, I think you can begin to experience some real benefits and start seeing some real great advantages of not having porn lead you around like a ring through your nose. But at the same time, I've heard online guys that, promise in 30 days, guarantee in 30 days that if you follow their program, you will be done with porn once and for all. And it might be great marketing to get you to try their program, but frankly, I find that either hopelessly naive at best or just deliberately misleading at worst. So going back to that question, how long does it take? Well, not to cop out of the question or the answer, but I would just say it depends. It depends on how deeply, for example, porn and porn behaviors have got embedded in your life. How many years? To what degree? It depends on the number of ways that you use porn or the number of things you use porn for. It depends on your life story. It depends on a lot of things. It's complicated. And just like that's complicated, getting better is also complicated. There's no one size fits all or one answer is the magic pill or the magic bullet. But what I would say, probably the biggest factor in relationship to the speed of your recovery is the approach you take to your recovery. I think it is fair to say, in terms of the speed of your recovery, you may be able only to speed it up so fast. It takes as long as it takes. But I will also say this, you can certainly slow it down. You can introduce banana peels into the way you approach your recovery, which are going to result in a much longer process by which it takes you to get better. I mean, that's just, I've just seen it over and over again. So what I want to do today is I want to talk to you about ways that I feel like you can slow your recovery down. Things that you're doing, which I think may mean that it's going to take much longer than it needs to take. Some people have called these decelerators or speed bumps or banana peels. Next time we do this podcast, I want to talk about accelerators or stars or things that can speed up your recovery. Again, I'm not sure it's possible to artificially speed up your recovery, but doggone it, you can completely slow your recovery down by not dealing with the following set of factors that I want to present to you. So let's begin to introduce decelerators, speed bumps, banana peels, again, that can throw you off track. All right, the very first one is dishonesty. Number one, dishonesty. The AA program has this phrase where it describes people who cannot benefit from recovery as unfortunates. And sometimes they describe people in this way. They are usually men and women, it goes on, it says, who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. I mean, if you can't be honest with yourself, how are you going to be honest with anybody else? And I'm convinced, and I do run across guys that the bottom line is dishonesty. They have just learned such embedded habits of dishonesty that, they always, it's like gravitate to telling a lie over telling a truth. Anything that could make them look bad, they'll just lie. Lying is almost easier than telling the truth. I think it's somebody who said the handle for every vice is deception. And if you are incapable or unwilling to step into the area of honesty, you will find recovery very, very difficult. And most of us who struggled with addictive behaviors have learned to tell lies, either by omission, things that we leave out, or commission. We just deliberately and flat out lie. So, whether it's one-on-one coaching, whether it's working with a mentor, whether it's working with a group of guys, if you can't tell the truth, it's going to be really, really hard for you. This is one of the reasons why I've had some guys who pay money to be in my groups. And they just say to me, this is usually the place where I would lie. But then I've told myself, why would I go to a group and pay money to be in a group and then lie to the group? That's just stupid. So yeah, it is stupid, right? But it's also very it just slows you down. Well, the second one is I'm just going to call number two is ego or pride. And pride is where we're always wanting to curate our image. It could be on the extreme that there are people who are narcissistic masters of the universe. But even if it's not that extreme, it's simply, you know what? We try and we need to control everything. Surrender runs contrary to every bone in our body. We're always trying to prove ourselves to people around us. And, the only way that you are going to be able to engage deeply in recovery is if you actively engage this character quality called humility. Humility is the pathway to recovery, right? If you think you're special or set apart, or your situation is different from everyone else's, or people couldn't possibly understand you, or whatever that is, right? It's going to be very hard for you to progress very far in recovery. That's why the very, very first lesson that we teach guys in the Finding Traction program is there's going to be two things that are going to be necessary for you to get out of the starting block. Number one is honesty, and number two is humility. You could even reverse those to say you're not going to be honest unless you're willing to take a posture of humility. I have a problem. I'm struggling. I need help. I know this doesn't, look well or good on me, but this is just the flat out truth of where I'm at. So, first one is the whole area of just being, I am just, dishonesty is going to slow me down. The next one, ego and pride. Of course, you'll probably realize what the accelerators are, which we'll do next time, which are often just the opposite of what we've been talking about. The third one is isolation. If you still find yourself isolating, if isolation comes second nature to you, it's going to slow you down in your recovery, right? It's going to take tentative steps, even first steps for walking out of your isolation. I've had, a lot of different guys who said to me things like, you are the first person I've ever shared this with. Whether it's embedded shame or fear or some other thing, the more you seek to hide or protect yourself from exposure, the less likely you are able and you will be able to find full recovery. Sometimes I think being an extrovert is a bit of an advantage here because extroverts tend to be sometimes by personality a little more likely to be self-revealing. My wife tends to think I'm an oversharer. But at the same time, I've often found that extroverts can tend to gloss over a lot of things. They're like the rock that just skips over the top of the lake. And they don't go very deeply. Sometimes an introvert, especially if they're willing to take those steps, often make even better recovery candidates because they're even more self-aware in their journey. So it's not introvert extrovert, but it can play into it. But the third one is isolation. Let me go down to, I'm switching my order. Let me bring up what I'm going to call the fourth one because it fits into this, and I'm going to call it secret shame. If there are parts in your background which hold secret shame for you, you never want to tell anybody. You're deathly afraid that people are going to find out, right? It's like those things have a hold over you. And I have heard guys share secret shames that they've had. I have secret shames, things that I'm not proud of. But more often than not, in certain safe places, for me to go, if I spend my whole recovery journey trying to keep a part of my life secret, it's going to tie you down. it's going to cause you to always, it's like having a part of your journey you never want to go to. And I've got guys that have shared, it's taken, half a year together, and they said, you know what, I was suicidal in some of these areas. Or, you know what, I have struggled with parts of sexuality which are really shameful. Or, you know what, I was abused. I was sexually abused, and I've just felt such shame around it. All of those things can keep you on pause in terms of working through your recovery. And I would encourage you in some setting to be able to unburden that, whether that's in therapy or whatever it is. Wherever there's parts of your life on pause, you need to find the play button. And shame is a great way to cause your recovery to go into pause. Okay, I'm getting my numbers mixed up, but I think we are on number 5 now. Okay, overanalyzers. This is something I've seen is a real detriment to people's recovery. Overanalyzers are people who just live in their head. For them, the perfect is the enemy of the best. Even if they hardly ever get, they might never get started because they're looking for the perfect way to start their recovery. Right? Just ignore the plane flying over here. Or they're trying to figure out, every time they start down one road, they hit something that they disagree a little bit over. Oh, well, I just can't do this because I disagree with that aspect of it. You'll always find things that you disagree with. The more time you spend trying to figure things out than actually doing things will keep you and slow you down from moving towards freedom. I've got, people I've talked to that quickly find a flaw in every plan or every piece of advice. And in doing so, they insulate themselves from true change. So that is what I would just call overanalyzers. Okay, number 6. Here's an interesting one. Religiosity. Okay, what? I thought you had something in your background like that. Okay, well, and I do agree that, following an AA idea, that the road to recovery very much has elements of being a spiritual path. But I actually want to talk about something called religiosity, which I think actually can block us or slow us down. You see, whatever shields us from true honesty, remember that first step, or the first banana peel, whatever shields us from honesty, or shields us from an awareness of our brokenness, or shields us from the ability to be vulnerable with others, is not serving us well, and certainly won't serve us well in recovery. And I've sadly seen religion misapplied doing exactly those things. Some of the examples I've run across are some guys from religious background they insist on posturing themselves as always being victorious, or their troublesome behaviors are part of their old life or their old identity. It's not really them. And since it's not true of them anymore, they don't really need to dwell on the past or talk about the things that they're not proud about. It's like it has a way of pushing those things away. But it's interesting, when guys are steeped in religiosity, you'll notice after they stumble, usually they go underground. They disappear a while until they can reappear victorious with all the answers again. Another example of religiosity I've run across is people who use their religious convictions to become crusaders about one external thing or another. They get hot and bothered about you name it, whether it's school boards or politics or things happening in the broader culture or, you name it. And it's like, as long as they're upset, don't get me started on this, they're focusing on other people's problems, again, external problems, but they never really have to turn and face their own issues. So, that's number 6, religiosity. Number 7, spousal blame shifting. Now, of course, this is for married guys. these are guys that feel like they're in their predicament because how the woman they're married treats them, right? If only my wife would be more inviting, she would be more open to my sexual advances. If only she was willing to dress this way, or only she was willing to look this way or do this in the bedroom, then you know what, I wouldn't have this need. We're great at spousal blame shifting. Actually, here's a really funny one that I've noticed. Everyone that I've ever noticed that goes through a marriage breakdown, they always become immediately trained clinical psychiatrists or psychologists, and they have great diagnoses for their ex-wife now. And she's got OCD, or she's got a personality disorder, or what's that one they're always using? She's got some of you might know it, but I'm going, wow, you're amazing. You've become a psychiatrist. Those are for people with ex-wives, but people in marriage, it's amazing. If only my wife would do a better job of helping me with my passwords. That would be another more subtle example of spousal blame shifting. Talking about wives or girlfriends or fiancés, here's an interesting one, and you might not want to play this one, but I'm just going to throw it out there. I think this is number 8, an enabling wife. And I have seen where some wives are so broken or cowed by their husbands, or they will do anything to stay in relationship with them. Now you might say, well, that's not my wife, but I have seen that. Even if it means accepting things that they know are damaging to their relationship. And if your wife or girlfriend or fiance is unwilling to put her foot down because she's afraid of losing you, it's less likely that you're going to persist in recovery. Codependent, that's the one word, enabling wife as an example. So that is a problem. And that would be an example of a speed bump, a banana peel. Here's another one, doing recovery for someone else. The more you're doing recovery to placate or please someone else, the less recovery will stick. Now, I know you just said, okay, yeah, but the last one, Vern, you were telling me that when my wife was really insistent that I take these recovery steps, then that's a good thing. But now you're telling me there's a problem if I'm doing it for her. Well, yeah, they're both true. But let me just say this, even if you started down the road of recovery for someone else, and that is your primary motivation, you have to very quickly be able to recalibrate that and find your own deep down motivation if there's going to be long-lasting change. I mean, I've had people that have essentially, their wives said, if you don't get a hold of somebody by this date, I'm out of here. Or if you don't make this call, or you don't do these things and, really put the hammer down, and they've started and they're going, oh, I'm just starting because otherwise I'm sleeping, in the car tonight. That can be a start. We all got to start somewhere. But very quickly, you've got to shift your motivation. So, you know what? I might have started it for her, but now I'm doing it for me. Okay, I'm not sure. I think we're up to 10. Any person not facing serious consequences. I think this can also be a handicap, a banana peel, a roadblock. Why is that? Because it's simple. We're motivated to change by pain. Many men don't change their exercise or eating habits until they have a medical emergency. Some men simply say, you know what, I am going to try just reducing my behaviors and go, well, I'm kind of progressing, which is a really vague word, and I can live with the occasional, the episodic relapse because I'm not doing it all the time. See, these are not men who've experienced real consequences. Now, I didn't experience real consequences. My marriage wasn't in jeopardy. It could have been. I had all sorts of negative consequences, but I was perhaps one of that 20% that found the motivation to do recovery for myself. So I'm just throwing out all different possibilities. But many guys, I would say the vast majority of guys, until the pain of not changing is greater than the pain of changing, most of us guys, we couldn't be bothered. It's too much work, right? We're still getting some pleasure of what we're doing. Yeah, it comes with some pain, but we're willing to soft pedal it. We're willing to say, you know what? I'll kind of do the slow boat to China when it comes to recovery. One of the guys I work with, Mark Dennison, says this. This takes us to the next one, which is what number are we up to here? Let's go with number 11. You can complacency. Like, you won't be complacent if you're facing serious consequences. It has a way of burning that out of your system. Mark Dennison, the quote I was going to give you, who is another recovery guy, a coach that I've had on the podcast, he said this: if you are 90% in, you are 100% out. It's just, the bottom line is we need sometimes that person standing on our foot to go, okay, get off my foot. I will do what needs to happen. Okay, I have no idea what number we're up to because I've messed the numbers up here, but I'm just going to give you another one. Compartmentalization. One of the great abilities of men often is to compartmentalize their life. There's an old marriage video called Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage. And Mark Gungor, I think was his name. He talked about men's brain as being a whole bunch of little boxes that never really connect. And that might enable us to leave work at work and do a bunch of different things, but it can be really difficult when it comes to recovery. I think it's Jason Martinkus in his book about compassion. He had probably the best answer I ever heard for when wives say, "How could you ever have done this? Didn't you realize how hurtful it was going to be?" And, most of us maybe have faced that question where our girlfriends or fiancés or wives look at us and go, "How could you have done this, knowing that it would hurt me or the kids?" And his point was, well, to be honest, my life is like this big dresser drawer in the bedroom. And I have all sorts of dresser drawers for different parts of my life. Yes, I have you on the top left. That's my wife drawer. And then I have my kids drawer and my work drawer. But my bottom right drawer, that's my porn drawer. And I go into that carefully and I spend time in there. Then I close that door and I go back to, your drawer. And and it's like, for me, it's all compartmentalized. And that might be an okay survival strategy, but it does become problematic in recovery. And the bottom line is you have to identify that. You have to lean into it. You have to take, in one sense, some of those back dividers in your drawers, and you have to break them down and say, every part of my life affects every part. It's just an issue. And some of these ones, as I've done this lesson or this topic with guys, they will throw different other examples. So these are some of the ones that people have thrown at me. Here's one that one of my guys said: the inability to understand or navigate or regulate my emotions. He described that as being a real roadblock, a banana peel, because so many and so often those internal triggers, those emotional triggers, are the hardest things that we have to deal with. And so we're facing with this whole area of you going, things are setting me off, and I don't know how to, either I'm not aware of it, or I don't know how to deal with it or regulate it with it emotionally. And as a result, emotions lead me down these different pathways. And we need, in this journey, one of the things that I've seen for guys, it's been one of the coolest examples of recovery, the benefits of recovery, is guys have become far more emotionally aware and far more emotionally intelligent. But it's when there's a failure for that case to be, then it really slows our recovery down. Here's another one, fuzzy boundaries. It's like, well, I have this rule about social media, except when I don't. And sometimes I put this on my phone. If it's a problem, I take it off, but then I put it back on. And I have these, boundaries around how I deal with people at work, except when we're going out on Friday night and we, all of these fuzzy boundaries, there's no clarity. And that's where we're not having a clear plan, not having clarity, not being that will trip you up every time. If you go into some of these situations with fuzzy boundaries or no clear plans, it will hit you every time and you'll find yourself slipping and falling and setting yourself back around recovery. Okay, I think there was 13 or 14 in there that I threw out. But again, let me go back to this opening comment. Guys will approach me and say, Vern, how long does this take? Well, the glib answer is it takes as long as it takes. But I guess a little bit more in-depth answer from this podcast is, well, depends how much you want to slow your recovery down. If you're willing to look at and face square on these impediments, you're willing to take these banana peels out of your life, you're willing to remove these roadblocks, then you can speed your recovery up as fast as it can go. If you're unwilling to do that, I've seen recovery take 5-10 years because guys still haven't learned the first lessons around honesty, humility, boundaries. They're still not willing to deal. They're still, like Mark would describe, Dennison, they're still 80 or 90% in. So, want to leave that with you. Next time we get together, I want to talk about accelerators, things that you can do. Apparently the stars, or somebody said mushrooms in Mario, will speed up your cart. I don't know, but we're going to describe some positive ways that you can accelerate as much as is possible your recovery. We'll see you next time.